Hey everyone, Tooth the Much Channel here. List week is taking its toll on me. This is just too much, guys. And this shirt is starting to smell. I gotta throw this thing in the wash ASAP. Stop texting me, damn it! Look, let's get into this album list and let's banish this 2016 list down to hell, because this will all be done. This will all be finished. Without further ado, here are my favorite albums of 2016. I recommend all of them. And I'm gonna blow through the first chunk of this list just like I did in the singles video. D.R.A.M, big baby D.R.A.M, big ups before a million universes, show me the body war. Various artists, Southern Family, Pop 1280, Paradise, No Name Telephone, Moon, Sorrow, Juma Carlton, Aika, Ka Honor Killed the Samurai, Vector, Terminal, Redux, Preoccupation, Self-Titled, Solange, A Seat at the Table, Sturgill Simpson, A Sailor's Guide to Earth, Neurosis, Fire Within Fires, The OC's A Weird Exits, Denzel Curry, Imperial, the I.L.Y, Scum, With Boundaries, Connor Oberst, Ruminations, Enya Ruby Nose, Black Terry Cat, The Drones, Feeling Kinda Free, Lemon Demon Spirit Phone, Aesop Rock, The Impossible Kid, yeah. That Aesop Rock album's very good. You should give it a shot. Shout out to him sitting at our number 30 spot. Definitely one of my favorite records of his. Definitely one of his most accessible albums to date. Really interesting how he gets very personal on this record too. And not that his previous albums haven't been personal, but just the stories and anecdotes he tells on this album about his friends and his life in the music industry and him when he was younger are all actually pretty intriguing. At number 29, we have one of the most somber and unsettling albums that dropped this year, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds with Skeleton Tree. Nick Cave goes into supremely dark and spacious territory on this new record. Highly recommended. And at number 28, it is the crazy, futuristic slave space odyssey that is Clipping's Splendor and Misery. This experimental hip-hop trio not only continues to push the envelope sonically, but also with the narratives that inhabit their albums, as well as the story told on this record is unlike that of any hip-hop album, really. Really, it's unlike that of most albums that are released. At number 27, we also have a very narrative-intensive album. That is the new Beyoncé album, Lemonade. A very interesting album detailing her feelings about her relationship with her significant other, Jay-Z, presuming that, everything on the album is real. We have elements of betrayal and heartbreak, but also reinforcing their relationship and coming back to the love that sort of brought them together in the first place, and sort of building on top of these mistakes to make a stronger foundation. And she tries her hand at a myriad of different genres on this record, and I would say successfully so. And of course, it has the killer single Formation on it. Moving on from there, at number 26, I give it to Ty Segall with the album Emotional Mugger. Incredible lo-fi rock and garage rock record over here. Some of the most interesting and most experimental sounds Ty has ever worked with on record, and I know that he's kind of unpredictable, always trying something new with each album, but I wait for the day where he once again sort of explores sound in the way that he did on this album. At number 25, it's one of the most beautiful, inspiring, wintry, and mystical singer-songwriter records that came out this year. That is Marissa Nadler, Strangers. Quite a beautiful record, and actually Marissa's most instrumentally dense album yet. Part of the reason that the album really lit up for me personally. I loved a lot of the backing instrumentation on this record, and in my opinion it made a lot of Marissa's songs really come alive. And she didn't exactly slouch on the songwriting either, so really nothing in the way of complaints about this record. It's just a very beautiful, folky album. If you love your music gentle, if you love it very introspective and kind of lonely, give this thing a listen. On the opposite end of the sonic spectrum, we have Street Sects with a End Position, and God, is this album disgustingly loud, noisy, filthy, and tortured. Definitely a high point, at least sonically, for industrial music this decade. I know this band hasn't really sort of taken off this year, and not that I sort of expected them to. This is a challenging, abrasive, very tough listen. But as far as industrial rock goes and noise rock goes, this thing is a fucking hellscape. And I'm seriously not exaggerating over here. When I first laid ears upon this album, this was seriously like an ear burner, an eardrum buster. At number 23, I gotta give it to my boys out of Arizona, Injury Reserve, with their album Floss, which was a really incredible return for them from their last project, their breakout tape, Live from the Dentist Office. Injury Reserve came through with some of the most vibrant, hard-hitting, and fun, but also thoughtful hip-hop that came out this year. Then it is the cyclical, psychedelic garage rock odyssey that is King Gizzard's Nonagon Infinity. This album literally loops into itself and plays forever and ever and ever and ever. And I love the intense performances all over this album. King Gizzard pulled together a hell of a record on this one. And it's an album that I anticipate myself spinning for years to come and has me excited for what they're going to be doing in the future. At number 21, it's a very interesting electronic music record, experimental music record from Matmos Ultimate Care 2. One solid, long, cohesive piece that apparently pulled much of its sounds, if not all of its sounds, from the cycle of a washing machine. Sounds crazy, I know, but this is kind of Matmos's MO, taking weird everyday sounds but turning them into legitimately great music. And even though there are elements on this album that do sound like a washing machine, it's not this super gimmicky, distracting thing. They take the sounds they sample from the washing machine and actually morph it and manipulate it into coherent and compelling electronic music. At number 20, it's one of the best underground indie rock records that came out this year. The new Crying album, Beyond the Fleeting Gales, a record that pulled together elements of, not only like indie rock, but garage rock and also like classic rock and adult-oriented rock and some progressive rock in there too, and synth pop as well, twee. So many influences and sounds all coming together into this crossroads of an album and doing it so incredibly well. The playing on this thing is so muscular, it's so flashy, it's so intricate, it's complex candy. The vocals have this amateurish charm to them. They're very sweet and soft, easy on the ears. The production is very bright and brittle and lo-fi. It's an interesting combination of elements and sounds, and all of which works to this album's benefit. At number 19, it's a half conceptual pop punk epic from Mr. Jeff Rosenstock, the album Worry. Thank you, Jeff, for this good-ass record. And then Weezer with their latest album at number 18, the White Album. Weezer really came through with a good album on this one. Weezer is back. They returned to form on this thing, and they put out a record that actually celebrates what made their music so great in the first place. At number 17, it is the Netherlands band Swain, fresh off of a name change from This Routine Is Hell, who have come together on the Long Dark Blue with an album of songs that mix together elements of hardcore punk, sort of metallic, heavy hardcore punk, and grunge and 90s alternative rock. And it's actually a cool mix of sounds. Of course, the high-quality songwriting that was on their last record translates over here. I would say a little bit more because they're not so much worried about delivering a visceral, overly aggressive performance like they were on their last projects, which were more purely a punk experience. This new album over here is more dynamic, more easygoing, has loud spots as well as soft spots, on the latter of which the melodies, the lyrics really tend to shine through. Swain is showing how versatile they are and actually coming through with one of the better records of this decade to kind of revive some of these 90s sounds, because a lot of the bands to do so far, I think, have fallen terribly short. At number 16, I gotta give it to Angel Olsen with the album My Woman. Love that record, especially the first half. Some of her most punchy and fiery material recorded to date. Definitely one of the youngest and brightest songwriters out there right now. Excited for where her future is going, as I am Mr. Kendrick Lamar, who is sitting at the next spot at number 15 with his Untitled, Unmastered project. Even Kendrick Lamar's B-sides are better than most of the albums that come out this year. Why? It's crazy. At number 14, it is the soul-crushing tale of struggling with the death of a loved one on the new Touche Amore album, Stage 4. I don't want to spoil too much about this record as far as the story goes, but this is an incredible post-hardcore and screamo record. Also on top of that, Touche Amore works in some elements of, some indie rock and some post-rock, kind of softens their sound up a little bit, makes their sound a little more dynamic, brings some variety on this record. And if you get the chance to listen to this thing and really follow along with what is being said in the lyrics, it is going to be one of the most emotionally crushing moments for you of 2016. At number 13, I got to give it to one of the cutest pop records of the year, if not the cutest pop record of the year, Caro Bonito's Bonito Generation. God, I am addicted to this album. It is so fun. It is so colorful. It is so sweet on the ears. The songs are so innocent and cute and endearing. I can't help but just listen to this thing and go, "Aw, aw, this album is cute. I love how cute this album is. This album warms my heart, everybody. That's legitimately why I like it so much. I will kill all who disagree." At number 12, one of my favorite rap records of the year. I guess my favorite rap record to come out of the West Coast this year, and that is YG's Still Brazy. Man, I was not anticipating my enjoyment of this record because I thought his last album, My Crazy Life, was so painfully underwhelming. Like, there was certainly potential there, and that potential is realized on Still Brazy. YG really sat down and focused on this thing. He got his breath control under control, actually bringing some steady flows. He actually focused on a series of topics throughout these songs, which he sticks to on every single track. The production on this thing is great, brings back that old school G-Funk vibe, but with sort of a modern punch. It's very tasteful, very fun, very catchy, and then the hooks on this thing are awesome too. Great features, lots of personality, charisma. I don't know. It's a great record. I like it a lot. At number 11, I struggled with my number 11 spot because that means this isn't going to be in the 10, what's my top 10 going to be? This is number 11, but it didn't make the top 10, but it is still one of the best albums I've heard this year, an album that I didn't anticipate to love so much given how underwhelming I felt the band's last album was, but that is Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool. This was such a dreary, just emotionally impactful record, which is interesting because it's such a soft album. It's such a subtle album. It's not an album that sort of hits you over the head or anything like that. This is very much a lonesome sort of experience, a very introspective album, very cerebral. Though I'm sure I don't really have to explain this album to you guys. A lot of you probably love it and enjoy it already. At number 10, God damn it, it's Nails. It's Nails. You will never be one of us. Ah! God, I love this fucking record. I mean, there are so many things about this album that remind me of their previous two records, at least at first. And I was just like, yeah, Nails came through with another solid record. That's it. I loved it, but I was like, yeah, it's another good Nails record. It's another good Nails record. Very consistent band. But then as I listened to the album more and more, I was like, God damn, this thing is like, it's so heavy and crushing like the second album, but it's like just as catchy as the first album. And yet it's longer, and they've gotten a little more ambitious with their compositions on this record. And I love the fucking lyrics on this album. Can I just say that? I love the lyrics on this album, especially on the title track. The way the band is just so fuck you to the whole world. And I feel like no other band sort of embodies that fuck you attitude in the way that Nails does. Like, they just do it in a way that no other band does, or I think even can. Like, there's like this serious sense of nihilism and just like antisocial behavior on this record that just makes me so infatuated with it, so intrigued by it. They're so unrelenting. They're so uncompromising. At number 9, one of my favorite singer-songwriter records of this year, that is the new Regina Spektor album, Remember Us to Life. I didn't think I was going to love this thing as much as I did because I haven't loved a Regina Spektor record for a long time, but I think her recent work with Orange is the New Black kind of lit a bit of a fire under her butt, and she came through with some wonderful arranged instrumentation on these tracks, some of her peppiest and punchiest and really actually most seductive tracks that I've heard her come out with in a long time. Also endearing songs as well. Like the closing track, The Visit, on this thing is absolutely gorgeous and heartwarming. heartwarming. I love the gamut of emotions I get on this record, from the tracks that are making kind of a socio-political statement about the strong screwing over the weak, or the rich screwing over the poor, so on and so forth, or the tracks that are, just gentle and inviting, and just kind of like a sweet hug from a friend who you really like. I just appreciate the variety, both emotional and musical, on this thing, how great the performances are on this record, from Regina's singing to the piano playing, and the production on this thing is incredible. It's vivid, it's crisp, it's vibrant, it's well layered. If you're sleeping on this album, I don't know what to tell you, and unfortunately there have been a lot of people sleeping on this album this year, people who probably think at this point, yeah, I've heard everything Regina Spektor has to say at this point. Nah. But you know what? She came through with a killer record, and if you like singer-songwriter records, if you appreciate singer-songwriters, you're gonna like this thing. At number 8, it is Car Seat Headrest with Teens of Denial. God, this is such a good album! The funny personal stories of self-deprecation on this album, and just, misfortune, I love so much. I think Will Toledo does a fantastic job of just like putting his emotional breakdowns into song. I love the raw recording and performances on this thing. I like the way that the band layers instrumentation into these songs that are intricate, and they're well written, and they progress really interestingly. They're not just like these basic verse, chorus, verse tunes. There's some interesting detours that a lot of these songs take, but they're delivered in this kind of, upfront, punky, not nasty, but, just like very raw kind of way. And the more I listen to this thing, there's just like not a hook on this thing that just does not snap for me. I've been destroyed by hippie powers. Yeah, I love it. It's so good. At number 7, it is Mr. Frank Ocean with Blonde. Goddamn, Frank, you came through with an incredible record in 2016. Listen, Channel Orange, didn't love it, but I heard potential there. And this album is that potential. On this album, you can't deny that Frank Ocean has matured significantly as a songwriter. From the way that he structures tracks, to his lyrics, to what he writes songs about. Like, he's a totally different artist at this point. And the way that he actually builds these songs instrumentally, with such minimalistic instrumentation, is actually really interesting. Like, he didn't overdo it on this album. This is not a heavily layered record. He seems to find an incredible amount of power in simplicity and quiet volumes, but yet still manages to come off like, really bold and upfront, like he doesn't really have anything to hide. This is a really creative moment for modern pop and modern soul, and I love it. Frank Ocean, keep putting out music. At number 6, this album is a series of covers, yes, but the way that the band reinvents these songs, not only, on an individual level from their compositions to the way that they sound, to the way that they kind of formed all these tracks together into a coherent album format, is absolutely amazing. And that is Shoo Shoo, playing the music of Twin Peaks. Man, Shoo Shoo killed this record. I didn't know I'd be that enamored with a covers album, much less a covers album that covers a soundtrack. But man, Shoo Shoo came through and made these songs scary and frightening and harrowing for 2016. I mean, originally the Twin Peaks soundtrack is very eerie, is very strange, is very unsettling. Not only from the way that it sounds texturally, but from the way that some of the instrumentals move compositionally, from these like really bright, warm, inviting, beautiful chord progressions to something incredibly dark and dismal and tortured. And Shoo Shoo makes those contrasts even greater on this record. The album is really great. I just don't have anything else good to say about it. I could just say good things about it all day. Let's keep going. At number 5, I got to give it to A Tribe Called Quest for their latest record, their comeback album. We Got It From Here, Thank You for the Service. A Tribe Called Quest uses their skills and their experience in hip-hop to basically bring a new perspective, a fresh perspective, an experienced perspective on the genre and on culture, and just bringing some good, tasteful jazz rap tracks. I think it is pretty fortunate for them that their sound back in the 90s just so happens to still kind of be relevant today, or just has aged very well. So as a result, like, they're still kind of able to stick to their guns and come out with a record that actually is compelling and actually translates with people. That I think is fantastic. But the thing is, in a lot of ways, I think they're living up to their older material too, with some great features from Busta Rhymes and Consequence all over this thing. Fantastic beats, good song subjects too, thoughtful verses, clever bars, really great to see some vets just putting out some great music, that's all. At number 4, I gotta give it to Swans for The Glowing Man. This was an incredible musical experience. Swans came through with an album that is very much built on a lot of the same compositional and conceptual foundations of their last album, To Be Kind, which, as you remember, I gave that a 10. That was my album of the year. But this new album over here is a little more spacey, it's a little more meditative, and I like that. This, together with To Be Kind and The Seer, make for really one of the best rock trilogies of this decade. And Swans, it's amazing that they've been able to come out with so much great material, not just in terms of like, hey, 3 good albums. Also, each of these albums is like well over an hour in length. Very, very dense listens. Swans just continue to kill it, and I'm really looking forward to listening to the band in their next incarnation. Moving on from there, our number 3 spot. What's number 3 gonna be? Number 3, we're really narrowing it down. Not too many other albums can be in these 3 spots. What's number 3? Number 3 is Death Grips. Number 3 is Death Grips. Bottomless Pit! Really great album from Death Grips, one of their most catchy, immediate, and memorable albums so far. Some of their most interesting material lyrically, in my opinion. Some of their best instrumentals too. They really did kind of live up to the hype of their last album, where they finished off Jenny Death with a song titled Death Grips 2.0. Because really they went back to the basics of the Money Store, a little No Love Deep Web. Really they kind of pull elements from every single album they've come out with so far, and they just put together this album that I feel like at this point in their career, they're just kind of making a record that they couldn't have made before. Because up until this point, they've had all these experiences, they've come together with all these production tricks that have sort of earned them the unique, idiosyncratic sound that their fans love so much, that so many artists out there are blatantly ripping off right now. So even though this record isn't really the most creative or boundary pushing for them, it's almost like a really awesome victory lap. They're like, we just sort of out of the ether pulled up all of these insane sounds, and here we are kind of refining them and sharpening them down to some of the deadliest tracks we've dropped so far. I love this, though I will say moving forward I am going to be more interested, or I guess more excited, to see Death Grips continue pushing forward and trying out new things down the road. At number 2, this record gave me nightmares and creeped me out, and I have a really weird theory about this album that I may talk about at some point in the future, but that is the new David Bowie album, Blackstar. David Bowie, Blackstar, amazing record, and unique for so many reasons, and not just having to do with the context, you know, where David Bowie passed away shortly after the release of the record. People get a chance to listen to the album, and oh my god, it's like David Bowie reflecting on death and being in heaven and talking about his career and his stardom and his relevancy and so on and so forth. Really powerful and kind of creepy stuff, given, again, the context around the album. But also, musically, it's a really intense listen too. Of course, some of those glam elements come back, but there are a lot of very strange, hard-hitting, fast-paced, noisy, chaotic, and experimental moments on this album, some of the most challenging material David Bowie has released so far. All I can say is I'm really happy that he just got to go out with a bang, go out with one of his best albums yet, and I'm just going to continue enjoying this album for years to come. And there we are, people. Our number 1 spot. Our number 1 spot. Our number 1 spot. It's Danny Brown Atrocity Exhibition. God damn it. I mean, the more I thought about it, it just became clear to me that I couldn't put any other album in this spot. And that's because on this record, Danny Brown came through with a hip-hop record that sounds like no other album in the genre. This thing is so weird and off-kilter and freaky and bombastic. There are tracks on this album that still to this day when I listen to them, they blow my fucking mind. Not just with, you know, incredibly solid cuts like Really Dough, which feature all these great features, but songs like Dance in the Water or Ain't It Funny or a bunch of other tracks on this thing. I still listen to this record and I think, how are these songs real? Like, these beats are so weird. No other rapper would even dare to try to rap over these instrumentals. And the way that he sort of attacks, or I guess explores, sort of that downward spiral he talks about on Triple X, it's like he was able to sort of go back to some of those subjects that he originally built his career, built his style, built his lyricism around, and sort of give them the darkness that was really appropriate for them. I know this album isn't technically a concept album, but in a lot of ways it does feel like that to me though. The more I listen to these tracks, the less they feel like just kind of a random smattering or mixed bag of songs, but really just kind of like a complete emotional portrait or profile of Danny Brown as an artist. He just really kind of like brought us into the madhouse on this one. He brought us down the rabbit hole on this one. Like, the raw emotion of this album is so powerful and potent, even if some of the lyrics he tries to portray them with are very direct and raunchy. Obviously, Danny's killer sense of humor is still very much intact on this album, but a lot of the time, those jokes, those one-liners are just kind of a momentary giggle to kind of distract away from like this whirlwind of pain and suffering that envelops much of the record. And not to say that pain and suffering are just in and of themselves a good thing, and that pain and suffering is something that we as the audience should enjoy. You know, it's actually the way that Danny Brown's sort of a stronger and more focused and a better person at the end of all of it that is part of what makes this album so interesting and compelling. Just finally with this record, he came out with the project I thought he had the potential to come out with when he came out with Triple X. And I guess he just needed some time to really kind of ruminate over this thing, and you know, and I'm just really happy that he did. I'm really happy that it happened because, again, this is my album of the year. I think it's an incredible fucking record. And I'm gonna leave it at that, everybody. List week is fini! I'm gonna go relax now, everybody. Zishin, and we're done. We're out of here. Remember, guys, down there in the description, there are links to all of the other lists that we came out this year. Also, check out our best of video where I go through my favorite albums and singles and so on and so forth of the previous years. We've been doing the needle drop, so make sure to hit up all of that, okay? Links next to my head where you can probably check out some of that stuff. Also, Austin and Jeremy's best of lists of the year are also linked in the description too. Make sure to hit up those because they recommend some great records that I didn't, because they have different tastes from yours truly. Thank you for riding with me through this list week. Appreciate it a lot. You're the best. And I'll catch you guys in the next review forever.